No wire hangers! What's wire hangers doing in this closet when I told you no wire hangers ever? Work till I'm half dead, and I hear people saying she's getting old. What do I get? A daughter who cares as much about the beautiful dresses I give her as she cares about me.
That was a quick clip of the motion picture Mommie Dearest. Now, David, we mentioned that you were the one who really persuaded Christina to write the book, Mommie Dearest, but she didn't include everything in this book about her mother.
No, that's right. When she first, when after her mother died, we began talking about it, and we're at the funeral. There was so much conversation going about her. I told her later, you have to write this book. This is your story, not Joan Crawford's story. Mommie Dearest is, is a story of a young girl who grew up in an abusive household. It's the fact of the matter was Joan Crawford didn't matter. I mean, as far as reality, as far as the audience, that was the big draw. But she couldn't tell all of it. It would have been not possible. Her first draft that went to the publisher was 650 pages. And she had to edit back to, I think it was like 320. We have the book here. And this is a reprint that Christina did on the 25th anniversary. So it's been out a long time, but it's working and still doing what it started out to do. It's just changed all the rules. And when we finally got to bringing it to the screen, to a motion picture, Paramount bought the rights from us, and I was to be the exec producer on it. And it took a year to get that picture organized to be able to begin filming it. And that entire period of time, it was #1, or at least, I think it dropped finally to about #3 on the bestseller list, on the New York Times bestseller list. It sold over 10 million copies. That was hardcover. The paperback sold another 10 million copies. And
people loved it, David.
Yeah.
They just loved the book.
It was, as I said earlier, the audience really were young girls. I don't think you've read it yet, but I'll leave a copy. You can read it, and it'll be an interesting read for you.
Yeah, no,
Let's just do it that way. I don't think the movie accurately portrayed the book because of the constraints that Paramount put on it. And the producer was a man by the name of Frank Yablans. He and I did not get along at all. Everything when you watch the picture, you'll see where young Christina is caught by Joan smearing heavy, like a mousse, through her hair. And Joan freaked out and cut her hair, just chopped it all off, yelling at her. Okay. Well, what happened in reality was that Christina was playing Joan in front of a mirror. She didn't do that to her hair, but her mother was so mad that she did that she did cut off her hair. But children do that. They're going to mimic their parents.
Of course.
But that out of control anger is what Joan couldn't overcome. In her behalf, in her defense rather, in Joan's defense, what happened to Christina in that movie, as portrayed in that movie, was exactly the overall that happened to Joan. by her mother. And we now know that it passes from one generation to the next, because they don't know any different. That's the way they were raised. That's the way they'll conduct themselves.
And so that's what she did.
That's right. So it takes strong psychological intervention to break that cycle. And it's very hard. It took Christina some time to break that cycle when she was raising my son. She'd find herself getting furious, and I'd say, just stop and think about it and just relax. And she did, and she realized that what she was doing was bridging that experience from herself and her upbringing to him. She eventually turned that around really nicely.
Good.
But she did it also, it gave her a better perspective in talking to people about child abuse. Because that was the point of the book. It wasn't the point of being a movie star or anything like that.
It was to expose child abuse, which was
really,
happening around the world.
In a real life situation. In a real life situation.
Now, David, after this movie, Mommie Dearest, what did you do next?
What did I do next? Oh, heavens. I did a tribute to Ira Gershwin at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion. And it was standing room only. It was SRO. It starred Frank Sinatra, Liza Minnelli, Tony Bennett, Ethel Merman. It just had it was a full book musical. By a full book musical, what I mean is it has a beginning, middle, and end. It is a story unto itself. And that story was Ira's life through his writings. So when we started to assemble that as a production, and it took 6 months to build that cast, to build the cast and to go through the rehearsals and everything else. And Liza was wonderful. I mean, she practically adopted my son. She'd come into rehearsal in a big old baggy gray sweatshirt and tennis shoes, and she'd say, "Where's David?" And she would find my son, because at the time he was like 13, 14 years old. And she just wanted to adopt him. But everybody in the cast was wonderful. I mean, Tony Curtis, what a guy, And his partner was Tony was about, I think he was 6'2", 6'3", but his partner was like 6'8". Huge, equally handsome guy. The two of them just really brought the audience down.
What a life you've lived, and what amazing people you've met in your life too, David. And we're very fortunate to have you here in Key West. And I know that you've been able to take some of the experiences that you've had in the past and really put those into your new profession as a commercial mortgage broker, which is what you're doing here.
That's what I do. And it is interesting because I'm Carol Shaughnessy, my wife, has often said what you've done in your past, which is volumes, has just really been it set you up to be able to handle and do all of this other things. I mean, we've provided funding. We provide funding for hospitals and for the building of industrial buildings and office towers, and we now can buy a city hall and sublet it back to the city. We can lease it back to the city, so that gives the city an opportunity to have income. And so we do a lot of things, but it's really because of my background. I've been in so many things that I understand what is necessary for each of these situations.
Absolutely. Well, David, I've really enjoyed talking with you this morning, and I'm definitely going to have you back on the show soon in the future, maybe after I read Mommie Dearest, and I'll have some questions for you about the book.
All right, good. Thank you very much for having me.
Of course. I'm going to take a quick break right now. There is still one more guest to come this morning. Stay with me.